It's Honeysuckle and Rachel Blackmore, Racing's golden duo!
Tiger Roll joins the greats and beats Magic of Light.
Best behaviour on the near side with the wettest of saves for Barry Brown and Oliver McKiernan. Local trainer Derek comes in again and beyond his test. Lord Lyon wins it from...
It's Samco on the stand side before he had the second round. He lands in the lead by half a length and goes on from Samco.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of We're Going Chasing. Today we're going to have a look back at Fairyhouse. It was a great weekend's racing, a lot of funny results too, but a very good weekend's racing. And then we're going to have a look ahead at Aintree. Myself and Cillian will give our best at this stage, what we fancy, I suppose. But yeah, Cillian, all 3 days at Fairyhouse, the attendances were up. There was a savage crowd there. I know you were there yourself on Saturday.
Yeah,
I was there Saturday and today, Monday. But how did you get on over the weekend?
fucking bad, not good. Yeah, it was a bloodbath now, to be honest.
Yeah,
it was a tricky weekend. Like, I probably went the worst. The trappiest card was probably Saturday. It was tough going now. All right. And then like Sunday, I was at home Sunday. I started watching the matches more than anything else. So I managed to stay away from it a bit Sunday, and then Monday as well. Tough going. Some interesting results we'll touch on in a while came up. So yeah, it was a tough going now for punters, I'd say. If you came out making a few quid the weekend, you were doing very well, I'd say.
Yeah, certainly. I know the selections I put up, not to be blowing my own trumpet, but the selection I am, yeah. They went very well. I had four winners in a row there today, and a 9-1 place before it. 9-1 third, but 14-1, 7-1, 15-2 winner on Saturday. It was a very good weekend, but a lot of funny results. You know, and even huge like 80-1, 100-1 places getting in second and third. Today there was a savage crowd there today. I think was there 16 or 17,000. There was a huge crowd, but a couple of things I noticed. Vaping, it's gone through. I tell you, if something comes out and if vaping happens to be very bad for people, the whole place is screwed. Like, there was one stage today, the stand was packed, and there was people vaping in front of me and whatnot, and I just looked around, and the next thing I just said, right, I just looked across at the stand for about 30 seconds, and try it next time you're in a packed stand, and just every second you just see a puff of vape going up in the air, and another place a puff of vape. It's just constant. Everybody's sucking out of these yokes, you know. But if down the line something comes out about it, I tell you, there's a lot of people affected.
Yeah, I suppose. Look, if there's someone had vaping beside you, like probably there's different flavors of it. Like, so the smell of it's better than smelling a fag, I suppose, for people that ingesting second-hand vape.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Yeah, it does. We'll move on. Saturday, I suppose the first weird result of the weekend was Animix in the Hunter's Chase. Ferns Lock, quite disappointing, but Animix looked like he could have been pulled up.
Yeah, he was detached. I wasn't really looking at him, to be honest. I seen him made a few bad jumps out of early on, and he was out the back, and you'd assume that was the end of it. I thought it was sort of a match. When the two of them just strode on, Ferns Lock and Bill away, you assume it's a match there. Ferns Lock was travelling well, and then just completely emptied nearly, like, and he didn't really make that many mistakes either. He missed, I think, was at the second or third last, but like he just completely emptied. And then this grey oak coming out from the clouds, and some ride from Charlie Mullins. He did well to keep persevering with him, and he eventually got up, and he won caused enough, won by about 5 minutes, I'd say. Yeah,
but it's savage. Even if you look back at the replay, like 2 out, 3 out, we'll say from about 3 out, if you watch him, he's a nice bit behind, but Charlie's never panicking. Like, no. He's actually quite comfortable being where he is. He knows he's got a bit of horse underneath him. Yeah, and that run came out of nowhere really for Animix.
Yeah, it had.
You know, but
like he showed some very limited form in Hunter's chases. Like, he's beaten in 2-point points very easily, and then beaten 16 lengths by Billaway and Nace, and then beaten fell in Goran. Fell at the last. It says here he was keeping on. Like maybe he might have got up that day too.
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
much run in from Gorn from the bottom of the last, but like geez, yeah, he'd some very, very poor form really, like in Hunter's Chase this year. It has come out of nowhere. But I suppose there was one stage he was very highly rated horse, like he's rated up in the 150s, so like he had a bit of back class as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, a very weird result to start the weekend off.
Yeah, and then that was quickly followed up with another very weird result. Allegor de Vassi 5-2 on or something thereabouts, being bet by Instit. You know, where did that come from?
I don't know. Like, because Instit was beaten. Now, it was probably the worst round of jumping I ever seen. It was her and Tell Me Something Girl in Naas. I was there that day. I think it was the day of the Lawlers. And like it was horrendous. You're gone. You have to put on. Oh,
No,
you're
that's
back
better
again.
now.
Now, but the two of them, they were taking turns making mistakes at every fence, and they were horrendous, the two of them. And then even then, like she won her beginner's chase, and then went and was behind Tell Me Something Girl again, and Bride's Hill beat her by 8 lengths. Then so I'd say Connections of Bride's Hill probably a bit sick that they went for the grade 1. Instead of going to this, and they probably thought Allegor de Vassi had their number from the previous run in, was it Thurles or the previous run in Thurles, but like she was pulled up in the grade 1 yesterday, so like it was probably they shot too high there. But Allegor de Vassi very disappointing, and like jumped well enough too. Like she normally jumps right, and she was,
Her jumping was always
fine,
it was
like,
no, people made a much bigger deal of it than it ever was.
I know it was horrendous a couple of days.
It wasn't.
But yeah, she's obviously just suffering the effects from Cheltenham there. Like she'd rated £20 higher than Instit and was only given her 8, so she should have been 12 well in. So she's severely underperformed. Really.
And
so
that turned into a common theme throughout the weekend. Those horses who had a tough race at Cheltenham, didn't reproduce. It was too close. And next year, actually, it's going to be another week closer. I think it's only a week or two after Cheltenham. The Fairyhouse Festival is starting in March, because Easter is falling quite early next year.
Yeah.
So I'd say you could possibly expect to see some owners maybe possibly holding horses back and picking up some soft prize money there at Fairyhouse, because any horse who goes to Cheltenham won't be up for it.
Absolutely.
Moving on then from that, we had Western Walk, and that was one that I said in the podcast here last week, and I put it up on the blog as well. Back from 15-2 into 100-30. Michael O'Sullivan on board, taking off 5. He could have been putting on 10 or 15, he still would have won. That horse has shown serious improvement since he's switched yards to Jonathan Sweeney and off for 277 days. Came out, won after a long break there at Navan, and then followed that up very well at Fairyhouse. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes next and how much he gets off the handicapper. Michael O'Sullivan then on top of it, he rode a treble, didn't he, at Cork the following day. Had 3 rides for Willie Mullins and Rich Ritchie as well. It'll be very interesting to follow his career and see where he ends up, but he's doing savage stuff there at the moment. Moving on from that, then Risk Bell in the Rybo Grade A handicap hurdle, Cillian.
Yeah, I suppose Monbeg Park first past the post there, and there was severe enough interference. I think if you look at the head on, he just whipping his left hand for the first sort of bump, and then he switched it over to the right, and then they bumped him again. So bumped her again then. So I think they had no choice really there. But yeah, Risk Bell, like she's obviously was very close to winning the Boodles, and like Jazzy Matty completely bombed out then. Like so. It was interesting seeing sort of the contrast there between those two. One I put up on the podcast, Hortazoo Dairy for Rich Ritchie actually ran well, beating 5.5 lengths. I think I was sort of saying that like 128 was a bit steep, but like the handicappers probably got it fairly spot on. If it was any lower, he'd have been very close and he'd had a good chance of winning. But I'd say watch out for him maybe in Punchestown as well. And then Magner Glory as well ran a really good race for Terence O'Brien. He was off since Listowel last September. he won a grade B handicap down there. He actually met the owners after the race just outside the ring. I heard the accent and I was like, the fella I was with said that they have to be the Terence O'Brien horse connections. They were just coming out of the ring, and we started chatting to them anyway. And he was actually over in Cheltenham to run in the county hurdle, and ended up just being pulled out the morning of that. But yeah, they were delighted with the run, and they said they hope to sort of get him back on better ground over the summer, and maybe even Punchestown. But the races they'd like to win and be going back to the same sort of race in Listowel again.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
that was an interesting one for maybe keep an eye out on him.
Very good. And then finally, on the Saturday, just briefly, Cillian Tiger Bay Queen in the listed bumper, 11-1, won by about 7 lengths, very impressively.
Yeah, it was very impressive, and you wouldn't really have seen it coming. There was a lot of money for her. She was 50s overnight, so they obviously really fancied her. She'd been off the track for
Was she that big?
Yeah, she was off the track for 14 months. She was well beaten behind Mercury, in a bumper in Goran Park last year, and like she's won by 7 lengths here in a listed race, and she only cost $3,000. So, and they've had her since she was a yearling. So like it's a very shrewd purchase there. So yeah, she was very impressive. I think the one sort of back the field to take out of it was probably Theatre Native. I know she cost a night, but she fell at the last in a point to point. So I think she probably did a very clear passage. So she might be one to take out of it, maybe going over hurdles next season then as well.
Okay. And then moving on to Sunday, just continuing, when I suppose Asher O'Diamond was quite a worthy winner, but continuing the theme of weird results and Cheltenham horses not performing, we had what could have been 66-1 in second, Pink in the Park 80-1 in third. And then, like, you know, some that were at the top of the market there, Magical Zoe was beaten 32 lengths, Halka de Tabaret, who was third in Cheltenham, beaten 60 lengths. And the likes of Princess Zoe pulled up, you know. Again, but the winner was very impressive.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I suppose, like, I know she came fresh, and like the other horses didn't, but like they've underperformed by so much that you'd imagine she'd have been in front of them in Cheltenham as well. And that like she'd form at 2 miles as well. So like there was nothing to say that she needed to step up and trip. She's absolutely hosed up there. What could have been like ran a really good race, but it always looked like coming into the straight that Astro Diamond was going to get there, and she got there very easily, and she was only just sort of punched out. There wasn't anything really, any sort of pressure on her at all. But what could have been, it was actually ran really well. Like she was just behind her in the Sol Arena. She's only beaten 2 3/4 lengths that day. She was between her and Jet Ara, and Haka de Talbert split them that day, and the two of those have sort of underperformed since. But yeah, it was very good for Jarlath Fahy there. And then I think Princess Zoe I think she cuts on her leg, and a few other bits the vet found afterwards. But yeah, she was very disappointed. And like, I know Paddy Keogh had made a lot of noise on Twitter after the run in the Mayor's Novice. The fact that she wasn't sort of prominent in the race, and she was prominent there. She was leading. She was sort of racing in second, and like she'd no excuse really, unless
she had the Cheltenham there, all those Cheltenham horses.
She's completely underperformed, and I just don't think there's a lot made of these sort of flat horses with a bit of class coming up to national hunt racing, and between her now, she's a Group 1 winner on the flash and third in an Ascot Gold Cup and high definition as well. Like, a lot made of them, and they've flattered to deceive really at the highest level. Like,
yeah, well, I think you could be been a small bit harsh in this instance. If you want to knock her Cheltenham run, you know, that's all well and good, but I think with the way the Cheltenham horses ran this weekend, I wouldn't be knocking any of them really, none of them, for the way they performed this weekend. You know, but moving on actually, and speaking of Paddy Keogh, we had the Paddy Keogh suspended Cillian's Novice Hurdle Grade 2, over 2 mile 4. Nick Rocket, again, it turned into a bit of a procession, with Danny Mullins on board. Parmenion was the one I liked for it. Only in third, and was well back 2 on the day into 2-1, and Deep Cave back in fourth, well bet. you know, Nick Rocket looks a nice horse.
He does, yeah. I think there was a bumper in Fairyhouse in December that looks very strong now. Dr. Bravo won it. Nick Rocket was fourth, beaten 5 lengths. Stellar Story, who beat Il Atlantique in Nace in a bumper, was fifth, beaten 5.5 lengths. And Shannon Royale, who won a bumper in was it Clonmel last week, was ninth, bet 12 lengths. So that's looking a fairly strong bumper there, to be honest. And then looking at sort of Nick Rocket's form, like he came on the back of winning a bumper and winning the maiden hurdle. But the horse that was second in the maiden hurdle is one I'd be looking at as well. Let's Go Champ. It was his second run for Henry. He was off the track about 4 years. He ran in a maiden hurdle in Punchestown in January. And was well beaten in third that day, but he was well backed, and I think he was second to Nick Rocket in a maiden hurdle, then bet only 2.5 lengths. So he's probably one to look out for when he runs in another maiden hurdle and even stepping into handicaps.
Okay.
But yeah, Nick Rocket, it was a fair performance now, and unfortunately I think the Gunnar Yates had to be put down after his fall at the second last, but he was running a good race as well. So he's a big loss as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Nick Rocket goes from here. I'm sure there'll be something at Punchestown there for him. He'll be stepping up to Grade 1 company anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
At Punchestown, you'd imagine. You know, so it'll be interesting to see how he takes to that level.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, then again, a funny result. It all seemed to, before the race, it all seemed to revolve around Hunter's Yarn and Nucky Johnson. You know, a lot of people fancied Nucky Johnson based off some form earlier in the season there, and the fact that he had improved possibly. But again, out of 6 runners, it was fifth in the betting who came home in front. Hercule de Soy for Willie Mullins and Mark Walsh, and Hunter's Yarn in second. You know, probably no hard luck stories there in that race.
No, there definitely wasn't. Like, that Hercule de Soy was full value for his win, and like he was so keen for the first nearly half mile for 6 furlongs, and he was just sort of lit up. Then ended up sort of 10-12 lengths clear, and he just kind of kept going. And in fairness to Mark Walsh, he gave him some ride. He slowed it down, sort of got a breather back into him, and was able to kick again after the last, and he's won fairly handily. Hunter's Yarn went to press him and couldn't get by at all. Like, and Hunter's Yarn is a good horse. He he mightn't have ran well in the county hurdle, but like he'd some good form at listed level and everything. So like it's a small bit disappointing. He probably couldn't get past a horse that ran so keen for a large part of the race. I think American Mike again, sort of very disappointing. I don't know what's wrong with him.
Bit of a busted flush.
He is, yeah. Like I just don't think he's the speed for 2 miles either, though. And like he was well beaten in the Ballymore bet 20 lengths that day. Like, and he was very keen that day too. So I don't know what you actually do with him. Hopefully, maybe.
Well, you go over fences and
might spark him back into life. But I'd say that might be his last run of the season now. I don't think he'll come back again. He's had 5 runs now. I don't see him come back for more.
I wouldn't imagine. I wonder is his future in big staying handicap chases? Possibly.
I'd say
long
so.
Term.
Well, he looks like a 3-miler, doesn't he? Like,
yeah, and he could, and then if he stays further than that, you could, if he can jump. That's where I give him his best chance of having success anyway.
No, definitely.
You know, I couldn't see him there in graded chases.
No, I don't either. And I see one more in that race, the horse that finished third, and he travelled well into the straight, and maybe sort of just blew up on the ground. Amir Kabir, he was off since last September from Listowel. He won a novice hurdle there, and he'd been second in a listed race in Galway as well. So he might be a good horse there for the summer. He's rated 136, so something like a Galway hurdle is probably in his plan sort of down the line there. But there might be a few races for him to pick up sort of over the summer on better ground as well.
Yeah, and it was ground that wouldn't have really suited him.
He sort of came unstuck in it there for a finish. I'd say he was just that he travelled well, and the ground sort of paid his chances there then, yeah.
Yeah, and then moving on from that, we had a quite fortunate winner in my book, a Dino Blue, at even money. I reckon that Whiskey Welt would have stayed on to win it. That's my own view on it. I think you're thinking differently.
Yeah, I thought Whiskey Wells jumping sort of went to shit for the last 2 or 3. I wouldn't say it was a tired fall, but like it was it jumped 3 out, 2 out, and obviously fell at the last then. So I think Dino Blue was sort of just while she was just sort of gathering her up to come with the run. Obviously we don't know, but like
Yeah.
I think that she'd have had the class to go by him, even though she was given away over a stone. But yeah, they're mildly with third anyway. So like, be interesting to see what they do with her now. Like, there's Mayor's chases in Punchestown as well, or like the handicapper mightn't be too harsh on her either. When she might not have won. So it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see tomorrow what they do with her. But 140, yeah, it's hard to know what they'll give her. But there's a few races in Punchestown for her anyway if they want to come back again.
Yeah. I say 6. That'd be my guess. I don't think she should get any more than that.
Yeah, 4-5 I just said, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be that lenient either. At the same time, we'll wait and see. Moving on, then we had the Willow Worm Gold Cup chase, and before we talk about the winner and those in the places, we had a very sort of sad loss or a big hit, in terms of Mighty Potter, because he was one that you could be looking at in terms of a Gold Cup next year. Well, actually, he didn't like Cheltenham, the poor devil, but he could have went very well, in 3 mile Grade 1 Open Company chases there, away from Cheltenham next year. And then Gordon got a bad doing for an interview that I saw very little wrong with.
Yeah, he's a huge loss. Like, he's looking at it there, like of the sort of staying novice chasers, sort of 2.5 miles up. He was the top one, really, wasn't he? From what we've seen all season. I know he was beaten in Cheltenham, but I'd forgive him that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's a huge loss to Gordon, who'd already lost a very nice horse in Three Stripe Life, and huge loss to the Browns as well. And like, they put a lot of money into racing, and to see their sort of flagship horse to lose him now is a huge blow to them as well. So our sympathies with them for that. But yeah, going back to the interview with Gordon, I thought it was ridiculous enough. Like, he's been asked a question, he answered it, and I think like it was Gary O'Brien sort of went back at him a second time and said, sort of looking for a different answer, and he wasn't going to change his tune. And like, he did say, like, he said it was a big loss to the yard, a big loss to the owners. He feels for the staff, everything that he does feel. So I thought it was a very, very good interview from Gordon, but it obviously hasn't come out that way. And I think a lot of people, you see a lot of the comments, and they're from fucking idiots, really, like saying like, oh, a horse is dead, a perfect place to sit on. They're not real racing people. What the comments there. And
no, but you see, the problem is that people have it out for Gordon Elliott.
They do, yeah,
it doesn't matter what he says or what he does. There'll always be people now who'll be finding fault with it. It's like there's a microscope on him, and people are just waiting for him to put a toe out of line, a big toe out of line, and then they're just coming in hammering him. It was a perfectly fine interview. In my book, I thought he spoke brilliantly.
Yeah.
And said it as it is. I wouldn't give Gary O'Brien too much heat for it. I thought, like, it is, as you said, it's possibly the best novice chaser this year, from 2.5 miles up. So I don't blame Gary for trying to get a bit more out of Gordon on it. But look, it is what it is. And as Gordon says, they'll just have to regroup.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Then looking at the race itself, Flame Bearer, Cillian, in your 10 to follow, a Grade 1 winner, and you said in the spring.
Yeah, in fairness, like, if you look at his form over hurdles, it like, he had just improved as the season went on, and that sort of spring round was a bit of a key to him then. Like, and he's been very good. Like, and I probably thought he was a 2 miler. I thought 2.5 might stretch him, but geez, in fairness to him now, like, he made the whole lot, and he went to fairly strong gallop as well throughout, I thought. And like, Sir Gerhard came and couldn't get past him, and Sir Gerhard's a very classy horse in his own right too. And yeah, I thought it was brilliant now by Flame Bearer, to be honest. But yeah, you could just see him improving sort of step by step all this season. Like, going back to sort of his first run, he looked non-stairs at the 2.5 mile trip, but he's definitely getting it now, and like, it sort of opens options for them as well with him going into next season. I don't know, will he go to Punchestown? He might not, but it definitely opens up chances for them now in different sort of over different trips and open company. But yeah, Sir Gerhard ran a serious race. I said that he didn't get actually a hard race in Cheltenham. He travelled into the straight and just found nothing, and they sort of just let him off then. And like he's ran really well there to come second, and again it's only his third run over Fensa, so he's going to improve as well for that. But yeah, I appreciate it then. It's sort of a small bit of a bust.
I'd say
top level then.
I think that race in general, I think will turn out to be quite a weak race. Unless I saw Gerhard totally wrong, and maybe I do have him wrong because it was a good run. But was it a good run or was it a weak race? Because I don't like him. I don't appreciate it. James de Burley then as well back. Again, another busted flush. Flame Bearer, you know, he's probably not the best of that lot, but it's probably just the fact that he hasn't run at Cheltenham and he's that bit fresher. You know, I wouldn't be paying too much heed to that going forward. To be honest, had Mighty Potter stood up, he probably would have bet Flame Bearer by 10 lengths, I'd say.
It's hard to know because you look at the Turners and Appreciate is beaten 4.5 lengths by Stage Star in that day in a Grade 1. He's beaten 4.5 lengths.
And how good is Stage Star?
I don't know.
Not very good.
I don't know.
I doubt he's very good. I didn't rate him before the race, and he ran well. But again, I'd say it could be a weak division.
It potentially could be a weak.
And John Bon will beat him next week.
Yeah, he probably will. John Bon's very high class animal. I think I think Sir Gerhard he's very good, and I think just they got caught this year just in his preparation. He was out late and he didn't get out till after Christmas, and he only had one run before Cheltenham. And I think just because of his jumping sort of errors in Goran that day, Willie was sort of forced to put him into the 3 mile race, and he just didn't stay on that ground. And like, he has an excuse for that, and he's came back and ran well in here. So I don't know. I think he'll be dangerous next year in some of them sort of 2.5 mile open company races, like, because that's not a particularly strong division either.
It's not. That's true too.
So like Sir Gerhard will have a say in that. And Flame Bearer in the spring, like, you look at Gentleman to Me, who a horse that thrived in the spring last year and then had some very poor runs, came back and won the Irish Grade 2, that Dublin Chase, whatever it's called, in the DRF. Like, so Flame Bearer could be a horse like that just he might take 3 or 4 runs, 2 or 3 runs to get him right, and then he could potentially be a very good horse. So I wouldn't be knocking the form yet anyway until we see. But like, the main thing is it's Mighty Potter is a huge loss, and like there's been a few of those sort of horses this year. Mighty Potter, 3 Stripe Life, Grand Jury, they've all been lost to that sort of 2.5 to 3 mile division, and
the 3 of them not only lost to that division, all lost to Gordon.
Yeah, Grand Jury was Henry's.
Or sorry, of course.
They've 3 big losses, and that division has taken a bit of a hit. All right, yeah,
it has indeed. Cillian, very briefly now on the bumper. I'm not a big bumper man, so I'll leave it to you. Brighter days ahead.
Yeah, she's a cracking filly. She's a half sister to Mighty Potter, French Dynamite, Indiana Jones, that family, and Caldwell Potter as well. That was that decent bumper horse this year too. So like that mare, I think she's produced 5 top class horses really, and I think there's 2 more out in France, Dr. Dino Colt, and I can't think of the other one, but I don't know, is that mare still alive now either? I think she's dead now, but that's a serious bloodline there. She's coming up as alive here, but I don't think she is.
Okay.
Yeah, brighter days ahead. She was very impressive when she won at Gorn. Very impressive again yesterday. She won by 4 lengths, and she's only just ridden out. She's not really asked a question. So to see now, like, they might just leave her off for the year, but she could be a fair tool over hurdles next year. I'd say she'd be very, very good.
Okay. And then on to Monday. Today we're recording this on Monday evening. It's 7:30 here, not long after racing. Blood Destiny Bet, another funny result. Enjoy the Dream for Andrew McNamara. That horse actually has some quite decent form, flat form, in Germany, and then ran in a maiden hurdle at Gorn and was third, bet 16 lengths. Nothing too great about that form whatsoever, but has obviously stepped forward big time from it. You know, and maybe Blood Destiny again goes to wind those Cheltenham horses. That's had to have an effect there.
Yeah, I wouldn't give the Cheltenham excuse to Blood Destiny, to be honest. I maybe would to Gust of Wind, but Blood Destiny got all his own way today. Like, he's allowed to sort of run it at a steady enough pace. His jumping was atrocious. He was keen for the early part of the race, but like his jumping was absolutely horrific. Like, he was just fiddling over them all, really. And like, turning in, it looked like, I thought Sir Alan potentially would be the one to pick him up, but yeah, Dara was always traveling well on the inside on the Andy Mack filly, and like he sort of got the gap then coming to the last, and he was able to sort of pick her up then, and she's won very easily, really. But yeah, I think she ran the German Oaks last year, and she was 4th in a Grade 3 or Group 3, so she had a bit of form there. But that race in Goran, was on bottomless ground too, so it's hard to sort of read that much into it. But yeah, he said after the race as well, he entered her in the Grade 1 in Punchestown as well, so he said if she comes out of this, she might run there, but he was sort of thinking, well, I was a bit mad to enter her there, so nice to see that vindication anyway there for himself. But yeah, she cost an IP, she cost about 170 grand, so
okay,
she's
they'll be quite pleased with that.
They paid back a bit of it anyway.
Yeah, and then before we go on to the Rathbarry and Glenview Studs Grade 2 hurdle, where Cillian Forlange won. Before that, we had the Fairyhouse Steel Handicap hurdle over 2 mile 5, and there's just one there. I fancied him there at 9-1 unanswered. He's come home like an absolute train to finish third. He was third in Navan prior to that as well, coming home like a train. That was over 2 mile 4 at Navan, over 2 mile 5 today at Fairyhouse. The ground today would have been too soft for him as well. I reckon going to Punchestown or wherever he goes next, if there's a step up and trip, possibly doesn't even need it. You know, if he just has the better ground, I think there has to be a big pot in him. He's definitely one to keep on side going forward. And I'll be flagging him here anyway whenever he does run next. Because I thought it was very taken out the last 2 runs from him.
Yeah,
moving on from
sorry to cut across. I actually had one in the same race.
Did you?
Hea for Willie. She last ran in the Galway hurdle.
Yeah.
So she's been off for 256 days. She probably travelled the best out of any horse in the race, coming to the second last. And I think the 2 mile 5 trip on that ground has just found her out a bit. But I think going back to better ground and maybe back a couple of furlongs, that she'd have a right chance. She was 5th in the Galway hurdle, only beaten 7 lengths last year. So I think she's one to keep on side in better ground as well.
Yeah, and it could actually be a nice race, because Catahorla, that form was given a frank yesterday in Cork as well, from his previous run, and the other one, Ottoman Style, another one who travelled very well, and again just didn't go on the ground. So it's probably a race maybe to keep an eye on going forward. Right, moving on to the Rathbarry and Glenview Grade 2 Studs hurdle. Asterion Forlange beating Monkfish, Beacon Edge back in third. I thought that was a super run by Monkfish. To be off the track, how many days was it? It was 713 days.
Yeah.
To come back and run a race like that, I was very impressed. I'd imagine he'd go back chasing now, and I'd say he could turn up there and punch us down to Grade 1. Yeah,
he probably will, I suppose. It's obviously a very difficult horse to keep right, so would they potentially stay over hurdles and go to the French champion hurdle in a tie?
Funny one, I don't know.
Yeah, but like, I know, Ruby talked about it before, it's easier to keep a horse right, keep them over hurdles, sort of what they do with Classical Dream. So you wouldn't know, maybe they might keep him there, like, but I thought it was a weak enough Grade 2 all in all. I know, like, just Monkfish to get that close off a break so long, it's I know, like, Somerville Voy absolutely thumped Asterion Forlange. I know he was off the track a year as well, but Somerville Voy's an 11-year-old.
Okay, but Cillian, you're just to pull you back there a small bit, you're talking about Hea and the fact that she ran so well on grounded and suit after so long off. That was a big point for you, the fact that she was off so long. Asterion Forlange was off the track a long time, 365 days, a full year. before he was bet 4 lengths by Somerville Boy. You know, like I wouldn't be knocking that form at all. I think Asterion Furlonge can go on to better things again. And in Punchestown, I'd fancy him to be competitive wherever he turns up next. And in terms of a weak grade 2, like Beacon Edge was third, bet 3 lengths. You know, other grade 2s at similar trips this year. Let's talk about the Boyne Hurdle at Navan. Beacon Edge was bet 6 lengths there by Blaze and Cal. Meet and greet split him. Like, are Blaze and Cal and meet and greet that much better than you know, Asterion Furlonge and Monkfish? Another grade 2 there at Goran. Chupu won by about 15 lengths. Obviously a top class animal, but what was in behind him? Very little. I think that's a lovely grade 2.
You talk about Cheltenham, and like Beacon Edge ran in the Coral Cup and was absolutely bet out of sight, and he's got to within 4 lengths of them here. Like, I just think
he was within 6 lengths of
that was before Cheltenham.
Navan.
Before Cheltenham, he's gone to Cheltenham to the Coral Cup since.
Yeah, and probably ran no race whatsoever.
Gosh,
hammered. Exactly. Yes, probably didn't get that hard of a race.
Yeah, it's hard to know now, but
yeah, like a horse who has come second at Cheltenham has had a harder race than a horse has come 19th, I think he was.
Yeah, he was well down the field. But look, I just think that, like, I can see Asterion Furlonge stepping into grade 1 company. I think this might be his level. Maybe it is, fair enough, but I'd find it very hard to see him step up to 3 miles and beat the likes of Chupu in Punchestown or one of them Stairs Classical Dream. I don't think he'd be
Classical Dream.
He
would. I don't know about Chupu. All right.
Monkfish, it's hard to know with him as well. Like, it could be hard to go to Punchestown as well with him, because like it's only 2 weeks away. Like, you're going to completely bounce there, like, and you're back to square one. Then like, they'll have to be careful with him, but he's obviously hard to keep right. But I think someone said, and I saw someone say it on Twitter, that the French champion hurdle, I think that's sometime in May, so it gives him a few more weeks. Like I say, it's only 17 days now to the Punchestown Stairs hurdle. That's his only entry in Punchestown. So I'd be very surprised if he runs there, and you'd be taking him on anyway. He'd probably be way shorter than he should be if he does run there.
Okay. Moving on, the McInerney Properties Fairyhouse Chase, another grade 2 easy game. One of the best horses in the country for picking up races like this. Got very lucky today. You know, it was ground that he doesn't go on, he doesn't like it, but it's the 3rd time now he's won that race. Again, very fortunate, but like, he's going to have a serious summer ahead of him.
Yeah, he is. I'm just looking here at the last 2 renewals as well. It's a similar type of race every year. Like, it's Castle Grace Paddy by 3/4 of a length 2 years ago. Animix was actually in it, and then last year he beat Celius Emery, Castle Grace Paddy. Janadil fell when he was in front last year. Yeah. So Janadil's down. But
twice. They're all grade 2 horses. Like, Celius Emery was a good grade 2 horse.
Yeah,
he couldn't hack it at grade 1 level, but he picked up plenty of prize money at grade 2.
Yeah, Celius Emery and Castle Grace Paddy, both 10 and 11 last year against an 8-year-old. Like, he was entitled to beat them, all right. But he was a serious bother today. He was well beaten.
He was well beaten, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see where he goes. Like, I presume it'll be a similar type of races again. He'll go to Killarney at the end of May for a grade 3 there. He beat Mellon in that last year, and then there's a conditions race in Listowel that he won on soft to heavy last year. He only just got home, and that he beat Born by the Sea, who's a very limited handicap really by a length there that day. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he does, but he's some horse to pick up prize money in the summer, isn't he?
He'll do exactly. I'd say he'll do exactly what he did last year. He'll skip Punchestown now. He'll go to Killarney, and then he'll go on from there, and he'll probably win everything that he won last year too, because he's just a class above in those races.
He probably will, yeah.
Moving on from that, then the Irish National, Cillian. 2 of us are only in our mid-20s, and we haven't had a chance to go back and look at the stats behind it. But for 6 runners to only finish in an Irish National, I'd say that very, very rarely happens. I don't know if it's happened in the last 20, 30 years. I'd be surprised if it has, because usually nice ground.
Yeah, it is. You can blame Richie Deegan and Fire Attack for that though. It
Yeah,
went
yeah,
off
yeah.
so fast. It was some gallop like it makes it really interesting race, doesn't it? Like when they
Yeah.
go that hard. And yeah, I suppose you to take your hat off to Paul Townend there. It was a brilliant ride, and I am Maximus. Like he's a horse that is very tricky customer to ride, and like he did exactly what Ruby said on TV beforehand that he'd do. He said you couldn't be in front too soon on him, that you need to just sort of wait till after the last to produce him. That's exactly what he did, and he got up to beat Gevry to deny Gordon for that one. But Jesus, yeah, it was a fair performance. I was a bit sickened. We did the podcast last week, and I said that he's one I think could win, but I didn't really want him to win. That he was 12s for the
Yeah.
4 miler next year. He was backed into 6s, but they're all in the bin now anyway. He's broken his maiden tag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
It'd be interesting to see where he goes now. But like, there's a lot of horses there that people had their eyes on. Like, I know that I really liked the chances of both Bustleton and Stumptown, particularly Stumptown. I thought he was savagely well in at the weights. But and I'm sure there's others like Am I Right was backed off the boards, you know. But just the way that the race panned out, like I wouldn't be writing off like any of them you like going into the race who were pulled up. I wouldn't be writing them off. You know, like because between the ground and the clip they were going, you know, you couldn't be put off any of them. And I Am Maximus was actually in the middle of a lovely streak for me on the blog. I'd unanswered their third at 9-1, followed by Asterian Forlange 9-4, Easy Game 2-1. I Am Maximus 8-1, and then on to our next race. Again, just very briefly, Max Charm. You know, 7-1. Very, very good ride by Brian Hayes again. You know, just bided his time. All the signs from the horse were previously that he sort of stays on very well. And the step up to 3 miles saw a great improvement in him. He was carrying top weight, after rating of 135. You know, but I wouldn't be put off by him again the next day. And finally, Cillian, we'll leave you wrap up the Fairyhouse preview with the bumper. So Firefox beat Il Atlantique for Willie Mullins.
Yeah, strong bumper, winner's bumper there for in to close off the card. Like Firefox and Il Atlantique, they pulled 25 lengths clear of Willie Burke's horse in third. He was the one that he rode himself down in Limerick at like 66 years of age. It's some going there. But yeah, 25 lengths clear, and I think just Air Atlantique, I think he traded at nearly 1-2 there at one stage, and he's a weak enough finisher. He doesn't find an awful lot off the bridle, and Cod went up the inside and picked him off anyway. And Firefox was under pressure for it before Air Atlantique, but he stayed on well. I think they'll be 2 good horses next year, though. I think Air Atlantique looks very, very big, and he's probably going to need a fence, but Firefox could be a nice horse for Beck to have stud, and it'd be nice to see them get a good one anyway. They've had a bit of sort of unlucky there the last few years as well, so yeah, it'd be no harm to see them get a good one. But yeah, it was some weekend in Fairyhouse, hard picked winners, but it was very, very good racing as usual. Like these big festivals in Ireland, they've made a big job like trying to sort of merge them in together, and like the winter festival with the sort of Hatton's Grace as the major day there is very good. I know Navan are doing a sort of a festival as well, aren't they?
There will be a Navan festival next year too. Yeah, exactly. The middle of November.
Yeah, so that's the right job, and like they're better than having sort of standalone race days. So that's very good.
Yeah. Right, so Cillian, we won't spend too much time on Aintree here now, because I suppose our focus over the last few days has been Fairyhouse, and I know myself personally, I haven't given Aintree great thought. So this podcast and video will be going out on Tuesday morning. We'll put out another one on Wednesday morning, purely Aintree, and looking forward to a great 3 days racing. But just at this stage, I think it's suitable for both of us maybe to put one horse forward that we quite like for any race at Aintree. I'll start there if you're happy enough for me to go ahead.
Yeah.
So the one I like for at this stage for the Grand National is Le Milas. He won the Coral Gold Cup back in about November time, and the form of that has been rock solid. Second that day was Remastered. He went and won next time out. He was rated 142 in the Coral Gold Cup. He's now rated 150. Third, Jerry Colt Rock hasn't run since. Fourth, Corrick Rambler obviously went and won the Ultima at Cheltenham. That was again his next race since that day. He was rated 147 today. He ran against Lamilus, now rated 156. Fifth was Bustleton, ran poorly today, but I'm happy to put a line through that. He's going to have another big day in him. And sixth, Ansam, is another horse who went and won next time out, and went up 5 or 6 pounds in the ratings. So you have second, fourth, and sixth all winning next time out. Lamila stayed on very strongly that day. 16-1 is a very fair each way price, and I see there's a bit of blue on Odds Checker across his line as well, so a bit of money has come from I'd be quite sweet on him.
Yeah, no, that's a fair shout now, in fairness. I've had my eye on this one for a while. He came third in the Martin Pipe in Cheltenham. He's 2 entries in Aintree, one in the handicap over 2.5 miles and one at 3 miles then as well. The 2.5 miles Friday, and the 3 mile one is Saturday. Buddy won for Paul Gilligan. He ran a cracker in the Martin Pipe. Off 131, he's getting £4 for that. He's beaten 1.5 lengths into third, Iroko and No Ordinary Joe in front of him, but he hung very badly to his left up the running. And I think if he could just have kept him a bit straighter, I think he'd have been second. He was only beaten Knowles for second, and now maybe he wouldn't have beaten the winner, but he'd have got very, very close. I think he's worth another chance. £4 makes no odds anyway there. And the jockey on the day there was the conditional jockeys race, and they run off. It's all off. It's just a conditional jockey. It's all off levels. There used to be like claiming 5 and claiming
2 and 3. Yeah,
that's seemingly gone. I was looking at it earlier, and it's seemingly gone now. So we'll say the jockey on the day should have been claiming 7, and against jockeys like that should have been, we'll say, the likes of Sam Ewing, who doesn't have a claim anymore, or Kieran Callahan claiming 3, Michael O'Sullivan claiming 3 over in England. So like there was a bit of a swing there as well. So I think that there'll be a claimer on board in the races in Aintree anyway. So that takes 7 off him. So he's down to 127. His sort of weight for the race on the Friday, which would be my preference if I was to pick one for him, is 11 stone 3. So minus 7 is 10 stone 10. So that's a nice racing weight there as well. I give him a good chance. And I think, he's an entry in the grade 1 at 3 miles in Punchestown as well. So they obviously think a bit of him, like if they're entering a horse that's rated sort of 131 in that. So that's, I think,
very, very fair point.
14-1.
Very nice shout. I like the sound of it, and you mentioned Iroko. Iroko's a horse I really, really like.
Yeah.
But look, that's all from us. Hope you enjoyed listening. We're going to be back again tomorrow morning with our Aintree preview. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Subscribe is an important one there. And you get a little notification tomorrow morning when our Aintree preview goes live. So that's all from us, guys. Hope you enjoyed the weekend's racing, and hope you're looking forward to Aintree. Talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.
Vauban finds more now and kicks away and up the hill. Vauban wins the JCB Triumph Hurdle.
Round the home turn, Davy Russell decides to send Presenting Percy on now.
It's a beautiful straight, 11 victories for Honeysuckle. She is the winner of the Unibet Champion Hurdle.
Heaven help us, runs riot to win the Coral Cup.
Manila Indo is all out, flat out, but he wins the Gold Cup.